Welcome to Faith Wonders, where real stories of faith and miracles come alive from around the world.
They said she laughed when she shattered the Virgin's face. They said her eyes glowed as she whispered, "She told me to do it." The newspapers called her the blasphemer of St. Helena. The church called her possessed. But those who saw her that night, those who stood in the silence after the scream, swear they saw something else. Blood on marble. A tear that wasn't rain. And when they rebuilt the statue, they say her eyes never looked the same again. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the smell of wet stone still clung to the air. Inside St. Helena's chapel, the candles flickered with a restless, almost nervous flame, as if the air itself was trembling. Anna Morel sat alone on the last pew, her hands resting on her lap, her eyes fixed on the white statue of the Virgin Mary at the altar. Her face was pale, the kind of pale that doesn't come from sleepless nights, but from years of carrying something that refuses to die inside you. It was a Wednesday afternoon. No mass, no people, just the faint hum of the rain outside, the occasional groan of old wood, and the quiet rhythm of Anna's breathing. She had come here every week for months. Always the same time, always the same seat. The priests had stopped asking why. The neighbors had stopped whispering her name. They knew her story, or at least the version that made sense. A year ago, her 5-year-old son, Samuel, had died in the crash of Flight 218, a flight Anna herself was supposed to be working on. She had called in sick that day. The guilt, they said, had eaten her alive ever since. But no one knew what happened that afternoon in the chapel. The statue of the Virgin stood 6 feet tall, serene, unbroken, gazing downward with eternal mercy. The same statue that had survived the crash, the one they found among the wreckage, untouched by fire while bodies burned around it. Some called it a miracle. Anna called it a mockery. That day she walked to the altar. Her shoes clicked against the stone floor, echoing louder than they should. The air felt heavier as she approached, like the church itself was holding its breath. Anna stopped just before the marble steps. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the polished floor beneath the statue's feet. She looked up at the Virgin's face, those calm, sculpted eyes that seemed to see everything and nothing at once. "Why him?" she whispered. "Why not me?" Her voice cracked like a splinter. The silence that followed was almost kind, until something changed. A soft sound, faint like a sigh, came from the statue. Anna froze. Her pulse stumbled. The candle flames bent toward her, as if drawn by an unseen wind. And then she saw it. A thin, dark line running down from the Virgin's left eye. A tear. At least that's what it looked like. She stepped closer. The air turned cold. The tear shimmered, then dripped, a single droplet landing on the marble pedestal. Anna stared, trembling. "No," she whispered. "No, you can't." The tear spread. Another followed, and another. They ran like veins across the white stone face. Then she heard it. A voice, gentle, female, inside her head, soft as prayer, cold as mercy. "If you want your child back, break me." Anna's breath caught. She staggered back, shaking her head. "No, that's not real. That's not—" But the voice grew louder, more insistent. "Break me." The sound became unbearable, a chorus of whispers layered over one another, like hundreds of prayers turned inside out. Her chest tightened, her eyes filled with tears. She screamed. The scream echoed through the chapel, bouncing off the stone walls, rising until it became something inhuman. Anna grabbed a brass candle holder. The heavy metal clanged as she swung it upward, and, with a sound like thunder cracking marble, the Virgin's face shattered. Fragments exploded across the altar, a rain of white dust and stone. The eyes broke first, the nose next. The mouth split clean in half, frozen in an expression that looked almost like a smile. Anna dropped the candle holder. Her breath came in gasps. Her hands shook, blood trickling from where the shards had cut her palms. And then she laughed. It wasn't madness, not at first. It was relief. The kind of laughter that comes when something inside finally stops screaming. But that laughter didn't stop. It grew louder, deeper, until it didn't sound like her voice anymore. By the time Father Gabriel ran in from the rectory, the chapel was filled with the echoes of her laughter, wild, broken, echoing through the nave. He found Anna standing before the shattered statue, her hands trembling, her face streaked with dust and blood. "Anna, what have you done?" he gasped. She turned slowly toward him, her eyes unfocused, her lips moving as if in prayer. When she finally spoke, her voice was distant, almost reverent. "She opened her eyes," Anna said softly. "She told me to do it." Father Gabriel looked at the statue. Its face was ruined, the nose crushed, one eye gone, the other cracked open like a hollow socket. Yet, for a moment, just a second, he could swear he saw something moving behind it, something watching. Outside, the bells began to toll, though no one had touched them. 1, 2, 3, until the sound blurred into a single continuous note that filled the air like a warning. By nightfall, news spread across the town. Woman destroys holy statue inside St. Helena's chapel. Some said she had gone mad. Others said the Virgin had wept that day. But Father Gabriel, who stayed long after the police had taken Anna away, claimed he saw something no one else did. When he bent down to gather the broken pieces, he found one shard, a fragment of the Virgin's face, slick with something wet. He lifted it closer to the light. It wasn't water. It wasn't paint. It was blood. And it was still warm. The news spread faster than anyone expected. By morning, every newspaper in St. Helena carried her face, a pale, hollow-eyed woman staring into nothing, hands cuffed in front of her, a smear of red still drying on her knuckles. The headline read, "Flight attendant turned fanatic destroys sacred statue, claims Virgin spoke to her." The photo looked unreal. Her expression wasn't rage or fear. It was peace, and that, somehow, made it worse. They called her the blasphemer of St. Helena. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse that day, some carrying rosaries, others carrying stones. They shouted prayers and curses in the same breath. Someone had painted on the chapel wall in red, "She has broken holiness." Inside, Father Gabriel sat at the back of the courtroom, watching as Anna was let in. She was thinner than he remembered, her skin almost translucent, her lips cracked from dehydration. Yet her posture remained eerily calm, like she was merely watching all of this happen to someone else. When the judge asked for her plea, she simply said, "I did what she asked." Murmurs filled the room. The judge frowned. "Who asked you, Miss Morel?" Anna tilted her head, eyes distant. "The Virgin. She wanted to be free." Her voice was soft, too soft for madness. It was the voice of a believer. After the hearing, Father Gabriel requested permission to see her. He didn't know why. Perhaps guilt? Perhaps fear? Perhaps faith? He'd been a priest for 30 years, but that night, the night he saw the statue bleed, had left a crack in him that no prayer could mend. The guard led him to the observation room, a small glass chamber smelling faintly of bleach and despair. Anna sat inside, her hands folded neatly in her lap. The flickering fluorescent light painted shadows under her eyes, turning her face into a haunting mask. Father Gabriel entered quietly and sat opposite her. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Anna smiled, faintly, as if recognizing an old friend. "Father," she said softly, "do you believe in miracles?" He hesitated. I used to. She chuckled. So did I. He studied her, the way she blinked slowly, deliberately, as if every word had to travel a long way from some dark, hidden place before reaching her mouth. What happened that day, Anna? He asked. What did you see? She looked up. For the first time, her expression changed. Something flickered in her eyes, something close to terror or awe. I didn't see her, Anna whispered. She saw me. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a tremor. When I looked at her, I felt watched, like a child caught doing something wrong. Her eyes, they moved, Father, not the whole statue, just her eyes. And then I heard her voice. Gabriel swallowed. A voice? What did it say? Anna's face stiffened, her pupils dilated. For a moment, she seemed to drift elsewhere. She said, "You've prayed enough. Now break me." Father Gabriel froze. The air in the room felt colder. The fluorescent light above them flickered. "She said she was tired, Father," Anna continued. "Tired of being worshipped. Tired of being blamed. She said the stone was her prison." Her tone changed, deeper now, resonant. "She told me, 'You made me a mother, but I never asked to be one.'" Gabriel's breath caught in his throat. "Anna, she wasn't talking about me," Anna interrupted, her voice trembling. "She was talking about you all." Her hands began to shake. "You call her Holy Mother, but you never listen. You only ask, you kneel, you beg, and you forget she was human once." Father Gabriel tried to compose himself. He reached for his cross instinctively. "Anna, listen to me. Sometimes grief can—" "She's still speaking," Anna whispered. Gabriel froze. "Right now?" Anna's eyes moved, slowly, deliberately, to the corner of the ceiling. There was nothing there, only a dull patch of shadow. "She's here," Anna said. "She doesn't like when you doubt her." The lights flickered again. For a moment, the hum of electricity turned to a low hiss, like a voice just under the frequency of hearing. Gabriel glanced up, his throat tightening. The temperature dropped, his breath fogged faintly in the cold. "Anna," he said carefully, "what is she saying?" Anna smiled faintly, almost lovingly. "She says you still don't understand what mercy costs." That night, Father Gabriel returned to the chapel. The police had sealed off the altar, but the air still carried the faint metallic scent of blood. He stood before the shattered statue, lit only by the moon through the stained glass. The Virgin's face was gone, but the rest of her form still stood, arms open, robes cracked and dusted white. Something about that posture felt wrong now. What once looked like compassion now seemed like surrender. He bent down to pick up one of the larger fragments. As his fingers brushed it, a shock of cold ran through his arm, so sudden it made him drop the piece. A whisper filled his head, faint, feminine. "You can't fix what's already forgiven." He spun around, heart pounding. No one there. The wind howled through the broken window, and yet he could have sworn the statue's shadow on the wall was smiling. 3 days later, strange things began happening at the St. Helena Asylum. Guards reported hearing voices during the night, soft chanting, like a prayer in Latin. Lights flickered in the West Wing, even when the power was cut. And every morning, Anna's cell door was found unlocked, though no one had touched it. When they confronted her, she simply said, "She doesn't like locks." They moved her to solitary. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, but her voice never stopped. Through the tiny slit in her door, nurses swore they heard 2 voices, one calm and soft, the other echoing, layered, inhuman. Father Gabriel visited again a week later. She was thinner now, her skin almost gray, but when she looked up, her eyes were shining. "She's not angry anymore," Anna said. Gabriel sat down, trying to hide his trembling hands. "Who isn't?" "The mother," Anna whispered. "She says she forgives you." Gabriel swallowed. "Forgives? Me? For what?" Anna leaned closer to the glass. Her breath fogged the surface between them, drawing a small heart shape without meaning to. For forgetting she lost a son, too. That night, Gabriel couldn't sleep. He dreamt of a woman standing at the altar, face covered in cracks, eyes leaking black tears. She reached out to him and whispered, "If you want to see him again, Father, break me too." He woke to the sound of the chapel bells ringing, 3 slow tolls echoing through the night. When he rushed to the church, he found the door wide open. Inside, the candles were all lit, and at the base of the broken statue, someone had written in ash, "She's not gone." The wind returned that night, cold, restless, and full of whispers. St. Helena's Church stood like a wounded relic at the edge of the village, its bell tower crooked, its pews empty, its silence almost alive. Father Gabriel hadn't slept in 2 days. Ever since Anna Morel was taken away, the air inside the church had changed, heavier, denser, like the very walls were holding their breath. He lit a single candle near the altar. The Virgin statue, the one Anna had destroyed, was now covered with a white sheet, its fractured pieces stored in a wooden crate beside the confessional. Yet the faint scent of burning wax and salt still lingered, as though something sacred had bled through the stone. Father Gabriel knelt, murmuring the rosary under his breath. "Mother of mercy, protect us from the darkness that walks unseen." But when he reached the 5th decade, a faint sound broke the stillness. Drip, drip, drip. He froze. It wasn't the rain. It was coming from the other side of the chapel. He stood, candle trembling in his hand, and followed the sound toward the back of the nave. There, beneath the crucifix, another statue of the Virgin stood, untouched, serene, her marble eyes fixed heavenward. And yet, from her cheeks, 2 thin lines of moisture glistened down, like tears made of stone. Father Gabriel's heart tightened. He touched the drops. They were warm. Then, as he stepped back, the candle flame flickered, not from the wind, but as though the air itself exhaled. From somewhere in the dark, a whisper came, soft, feminine, trembling. "She told me to break her face." The priest's blood ran cold. He turned. No one, only shadows dancing against the walls. By morning, the villagers gathered outside the church. Word had spread. Another statue, shattered overnight. No sign of forced entry, the doors still locked from inside. The local police reviewed the footage from the surveillance camera Father Gabriel had installed the week before. The screen flickered, static, then shapes moving in the grainy light. A figure in white, long hair, bare feet, walking between the pews. When she turned toward the camera, her face was nothing but light. And for a single frame, the digital noise seemed to form words. "If you want your child back." The footage ended there. That night, Father Gabriel sat alone in his quarters, replaying the image in his mind. He remembered Anna's eyes in the asylum, hollow yet burning, like someone who had seen God and come back cursed. Maybe she wasn't lying, he whispered to himself. Maybe she was chosen. He opened his Bible, the pages trembling slightly beneath his fingers. The verse he landed on read, "And the stone which the builders rejected shall become the cornerstone." He looked toward the chapel, where the last light of dusk filtered through the cracked stained glass. For a brief moment he thought he saw her, the Virgin, not in marble, but standing in flesh and white, her eyes wide open. Then the lights went out. The bell rang once, though no one had touched it. And far away, in her padded cell, Anna Morel woke up screaming. 3 days after the second miracle, Father Gabriel drove through the morning fog to St. Mary's Asylum. The rain had not stopped for 2 nights, and the world seemed caught in a state of penance, every tree bending as though praying, every sound softened by water. He hadn't told the bishop he was coming. He no longer sought permission. He only wanted answers. When the guards led him down the narrow corridor, he felt it, that same suffocating weight he had sensed inside the church. The walls here were padded white, but the air still smelled of fear and bleach. Anna Morel was sitting by the small window in her cell, her hands folded as if in prayer. Her hair, once neat and golden, now hung in tangled strands. Yet her face was calm, too calm. "Father Gabriel," she said softly when she saw him. Her voice was neither mad nor broken. It was certain. He sat down across from her. "You said the Virgin spoke to you," he began. "Do you still hear her?" Anna smiled faintly. "No, she doesn't speak in words anymore." "Then how does she speak?" Anna lifted her eyes to his, a kind of childlike innocence mixed with something older, deeper. "She shows me what you cannot see." There was a pause. Outside, thunder rolled like the slow growl of something ancient. "She cried," Anna whispered. "Before I broke her face, she cried. Not for me, for him. For the God who has turned his face away." Father Gabriel felt his skin crawl. "You mean Christ?" "No," she said simply. "I mean the one who created everything. The one even the saints have forgotten." That night, in his quarters, Gabriel couldn't sleep. He replayed her words in his mind. "The one even the saints have forgotten." He opened the Bible again. The same verse he'd seen before stared back at him. "The stone which the builders rejected shall become the cornerstone." And then, almost by instinct, he took out the small marble fragment he had kept, a piece from the destroyed statue. It was the left eye of the Virgin. He placed it under the lamp. The surface gleamed faintly, and for the briefest second he thought he saw it move. The reflection shifting, not from light, but from something behind the stone. He leaned closer, and in that reflection he saw a child. A boy, maybe 7, standing in a field of lilies. He was laughing, reaching out to something unseen. And then a shadow swept over him. A roar, flames, metal breaking, screams swallowed by silence. Gabriel stumbled back. His breath trembled. That was the same accident Anna's son had died in, the crash over the Atlantic 2 years ago. The marble eye fell from his hand, rolling across the floor, leaving a faint trail of moisture, as though it had been crying. The next morning, Father Gabriel returned to the asylum. He demanded to see Anna again. But the nurse told him she'd been sedated all night. She hadn't slept. She kept whispering one phrase over and over. "The eyes are not hers anymore." He walked into her room quietly. The morning light filtered through the bars, painting the walls pale gold. Anna was awake now, though her eyes were distant, fixed on something beyond the ceiling. "Anna," he said gently, "what do you mean, the eyes are not hers?" She smiled, that same eerie calm. "When I looked into them," she said, "I didn't see her. I saw him." "Who?" "The one who watches through the saints, the one who hides behind holiness." Her voice trembled. "He said my child was never gone, only hidden. But to see him again, I had to break her, to free his reflection." Gabriel felt the room grow smaller, the air thicker. "You're saying there's something inside the statue?" Anna nodded slowly. "Not inside, behind. The marble was only the veil." That evening, Gabriel returned to St. Helena's Church. He locked the doors and approached the crate where the shattered statue lay. Piece by piece, he laid the fragments on the altar. The hands, the robe, the broken crown. When he placed the marble eye at the center, a sudden chill ran through the air. The candles flickered. The crucifix above him groaned softly, as though shifting under invisible weight. And then he heard it, a faint heartbeat, echoing from somewhere inside the stone. He froze. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the heartbeat, faster now, pulsing like something alive beneath the marble. Gabriel fell to his knees, pressing his hand against the fragments. "Holy Mother, if this is you, show me your mercy." But instead of mercy, he felt warmth, the warmth of skin, pulsing through cold stone. The fragments began to tremble. One by one, they started pulling toward each other, drawn by some unseen force. The face began to reform, lips, cheeks, eyes. And then the statue opened them. The Virgin's eyes glowed with faint gold, not serene, not kind, but full of sorrow. Her lips parted, and a voice, soft, layered, not quite human, whispered, "You prayed for miracles, Father, but miracles come from suffering." The church lights burst. Darkness flooded the room, and only the golden eyes remained, floating, watching him. He tried to cross himself, but his arm froze midway. He couldn't move. The voice spoke again. "She broke me because I asked her to. The world has forgotten what pain built it. You pray to my image, but not to my truth." The eyes began to weep, thin streams of molten light running down the marble cheeks. Gabriel fell backward, clutching the rosary. "Who are you?" he whispered. The voice grew quieter, closer. The reflection, the forgotten, the eye that sees what heaven won't. Then silence. When he opened his eyes again, dawn had come. The statue lay still, reassembled, as if nothing had happened. But when he looked closer, he saw that the Virgin's eyes were no longer carved from stone. They were glass. And behind the glass, something moved, like the faint flicker of a child's reflection, smiling. Father Gabriel sank to his knees. He finally understood what Anna had meant. The eyes were not hers anymore. And in that moment, as the morning light hit the altar, he felt tears fill his own eyes, because deep inside, he wasn't sure anymore whether he was still praying to God or to whatever had taken his place. For 3 days, Father Gabriel didn't step outside the church. He barely ate, barely spoke. He spent his hours staring at the Virgin's face, the glass eyes glinting in candlelight, eyes that now seemed to breathe. Every few hours, they caught the light differently, like the flicker of water over a well. Sometimes, in those reflections, he thought he saw movement, a child's silhouette, a hand reaching, the echo of laughter that was not his own. And each time he whispered, "Dominus, miserere nobis," Lord, have mercy on us. But mercy no longer lived in that church. On the 4th night, the mirror above the altar, a relic of the old confession chamber, cracked. No storm, no tremor, just a sound like a breath held too long, released. When Gabriel climbed to inspect it, the shards reflected not his face, but a child's. Pale, smiling faintly, eyes wide and endless. He stepped back, trembling. "Who are you?" The child tilted his head. Then, in a voice too small, too human, it whispered, not from the mirror, but from behind it, "Don't you recognize me, Father?" Gabriel froze. That voice? He had heard it before, in honest tape recordings. Her son, Lucien. He reached out and touched the glass. It was warm. At dawn, he drove again to the asylum. He demanded to see Anna, but the guards hesitated. Something had happened in the night. Her room had flooded, though the pipes were intact, the floor dry everywhere else. When they opened the door, Father Gabriel felt the same chill that had haunted the church. The walls were wet, shimmering faintly like the inside of a shell. Anna sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by drawings, hundreds of them. Every single one was the same. A woman without a face, holding a child who looked straight at the viewer. And in each drawing, the child's eyes were blacked out. "Anna," Gabriel whispered, "what have you done?" She smiled faintly, like she had been waiting for him. "Do you see him now?" "Who?" "My son. He's not dead, Father. He's in there." She pointed to the wall behind her, to the only place without a drawing. There, faintly visible under the plaster, was a small handprint, perfectly preserved. "Lucien?" he asked. Anna's voice softened. "He said you would come. He said you would understand what she is." "She?" "The mother, but not the one you pray to." Anna's eyes gleamed with tears. "She's the other one, the first mother, the one who never forgave him for taking her children away." That night, Father Gabriel locked himself in the rectory and searched the old archives of the parish. He found fragments of letters from missionaries who had served before him, accounts of strange occurrences, visions of a weeping Madonna, villagers hearing a mother's lullaby from inside the altar at night. One note, dated 1896, caught his eye. It read, "The eyes of the Virgin are not carved, they are mirrors, to trap the reflection of the lost. A promise made by the sculptor to the woman who had lost her son. She said the Virgin must see what God does not." The sculptor's name, Alphonse Morel. Gabriel's heart sank. Anna's great-grandfather. Later that evening, he returned to the sanctuary. The candles had burned low, their wax melted into crimson rivers on the floor. He stood before the statue. The glass eyes shimmered faintly, and this time there was no mistake. A boy's reflection was looking back at him. "Lucien?" Gabriel whispered. The reflection smiled. Then its lips moved. "She wants me back." "Who does?" "Mother." "She's waiting," the boy continued, voice faint as mist. "She said you must finish what she started." Gabriel stepped back, heart pounding. "What do you want from me?" "Break the mirror." "No." "Break it, or she'll take another child." The glass rippled like water. A scream echoed through the church, high, distant, and horribly real. Gabriel fell to his knees, clutching his crucifix. "Leave her alone. Leave the living alone." The voice softened, the boy again, almost pleading. "Then free me." For a moment, the reflection looked afraid, as though something else, something vast and ancient, was moving behind it. Then the mirror cracked, not shattered, but split like a vein, glowing faint gold beneath the fracture lines. From within, a faint hum rose, almost like breathing. Gabriel couldn't take his eyes off it. Inside the glow, he saw a shape forming, a woman, arms open, eyes of molten light. Not the Virgin, not Mary, something older. "You call me Mother," the voice said, layered and echoing, "but you forget that before heaven, I was the womb of sorrow. I birthed your angels and buried your sons." Gabriel dropped the crucifix. It burned his hand. What are you?" he whispered. The figure in the mirror smiled. The first reflection. Then the sound came, like hundreds of wings beating from behind the walls, soft and suffocating. The glass shuddered violently, and the child's voice cried out one last time, "Help me, Father!" And then, silence. When the dawn broke, the villagers found the church doors wide open. The candles were extinguished. The mirror gone. Father Gabriel was kneeling before the altar, whispering to no one. His eyes were distant, unfocused, reflecting the same faint gold as the statues. When they tried to move him, he didn't resist. He only said one thing over and over. "The child is with her now. The eye has seen." In his pocket, they found a single drawing, the same one Anna had made. A faceless woman holding a child. Only this time, the child's eyes were open, glowing faintly like glass catching fire. That night, in her asylum cell, Anna Morel slept for the first time in months. The nurses said she smiled in her sleep. But when they looked closer, her eyes were moving beneath her lids, side to side, as if watching something only she could see. Outside her window, a small reflection flickered against the glass, a boy's face, smiling faintly, as if he had finally come home. The bells of St. Helena rang at dawn, though no hand touched them. Their sound rolled through the valley like thunder from another world, waking every villager in a sudden chill. No one knew why they rang. No one had the courage to go near the church. The sky above it was gray, not from clouds, but from ash. The air shimmered faintly, as if light itself was bleeding through something unseen. Inside, Father Gabriel stood before the altar, pale and motionless. The candles he had lit the night before were still burning, though their wicks hadn't shortened. Time, it seemed, had stopped for him. He stared at the statue. The Virgin's eyes, once glass, now glowed faintly from within, pulsing with a rhythm too slow to be human. And beneath the altar, a pool of clear water had formed, though no pipe leaked and no rain had fallen. It wasn't ordinary water. When Gabriel knelt beside it, he saw his reflection shift and multiply. Hundreds of faces, his and not his, overlapping like broken mirrors. From deep within the water, a voice rose, layered, tender, infinite. The third sign has come. He whispered, "Mother of God, what have we done?" The voice answered, "You prayed for proof of heaven, so heaven opened its eye." By noon, word of the miracle spread. Pilgrims arrived from nearby towns, drawn by rumors that the Virgin had wept blood, that the statue spoke, that Father Gabriel had seen angels. The bishop ordered the church sealed until investigation. But when his men entered, one fainted instantly. Another dropped to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. They said they heard music, a sound that didn't come from the world. The church's interior had changed. The cracked glass windows now shimmered with faint gold veins. The air was heavy with the scent of lilies, though none were present. And on the far wall, where the old confessional stood, a new painting had appeared, though no one had painted it. It showed a woman clothed in white, her hands cradling a child whose eyes were two mirrors of light. Beneath it, in Latin, the words, "Oculus Dei aperitor," the eye of God opens. The bishop ordered the image covered, but by evening the cloth had fallen away, burned clean through by an unseen hand. That night, a storm gathered over the village, lightning with no thunder, rain with no clouds. People woke to the sound of crying, not from outside, but from inside their homes. Mirrors fogged over, then cleared, revealing faces that weren't their own. Children began whispering names in their sleep, names no one had ever told them. At the asylum, Anna Morel sat upright in bed, her eyes wide open. She was no longer restrained. The nurses said she had become calm, unnervingly calm. She spoke little, except for one phrase, repeated like prayer. "He's with her now, and soon she'll open the sky." Meanwhile, Father Gabriel had stopped preaching. He no longer wrote in his journal. He no longer prayed. He only listened. The church spoke now. The stones breathed. The Virgin's tears fell not as water, but as light that shimmered before evaporating into nothing. And when he looked closely, he saw tiny movements within that light, shapes like wings, flickering in and out, as though the air was folding itself into other forms. He understood then what Anna had meant. The statues, the reflections, the miracles, they were not blessings. They were invitations. On the seventh night, the third miracle came. At exactly 3:33 a.m., every mirror in the village cracked at once. The sound woke even the dead. Dogs howled. Bells rang again without hands. And above St. Helena, a blinding column of light erupted from the church roof, silent, white, and vast. It shot straight into the clouds, turning the rain into falling glass. Those who saw it said they felt their hearts stop for a moment. Some fell to their knees, others screamed. But for a few, the ones who had lost children, it brought only peace. They said they saw their sons and daughters within the light, smiling, calling them home. Father Gabriel stood at the altar, arms open, tears streaming down his face. The Virgin's eyes glowed brighter now, pulsing like twin suns. "Mother," he whispered, "what is this?" The voice replied, soft as breath, "Resurrection." Of what? Of everything you buried. The ground beneath the church began to tremble. The water under the altar rippled, then rose, forming shapes like human figures made of light. Children, dozens of them. They reached for him, touching his hands, his robes, their faces both beautiful and horrifying, alive and dead, radiant and empty. "Lucian," he whispered. One of them nodded. "She says it's time to wake the world." Then the light burst. At sunrise, the storm vanished. The sky was clear, unnaturally so. But the world had changed. Every crucifix in the valley had turned its head downward. Every holy painting now wept a thin line of salt water. And every mirror reflected two figures, the viewer and a child behind them. The newspapers called it the miracle of St. Helena. Thousands arrived in pilgrimage. The Vatican sent investigators, but by the time they reached the village, Father Gabriel was gone. Only his robe remained, folded neatly on the altar beside the statue, and beneath it, a single glass eye. In the asylum, Anna Morel was released. They said her condition had improved miraculously. She returned to her small house near the cliffs, living quietly, praying often. But neighbors said that at night they saw her talking to someone through her window, a small boy, standing in the moonlight, though no one else could see him. Sometimes, when the wind blew from the sea, they swore they heard two voices, one calling "Mother," and another answering, "I'm here." In the months that followed, strange reports continued. Children claiming to see the Lady in White near the ruins of St. Helena. Pools of clear water appearing in places of tragedy. And in every photograph taken of the church ruins, a faint reflection, a woman holding a child, visible only when the image was mirrored. Historians dismissed it as pareidolia. Believers called it a new covenant. The church called it heresy. But those who had seen the light, those who had felt it pass through them like a heartbeat, knew something else. Heaven had not opened to save them. It had opened to look back. Months passed after the fire at St. Helena. The church sealed the ruins. The world moved on. But in the village, silence never truly returned. At night, fishermen swore they saw a woman in white walking along the cliffs, barefoot, holding something glowing in her arms. Others said the sea sometimes whispered a name, Anna. Anna Morel lived quietly by the coast now. She no longer spoke of miracles nor of madness. She tended her garden, prayed in silence, and every dusk she looked out over the water. When the tide was still, she saw her reflection, yet it wasn't just hers. A faint, older face seemed to merge with her own, serene, infinite, watching. "You were never a vision," Anna whispered. "You were a memory." The reflection smiled. In Rome, a sealed report circulated through the Vatican's inner chambers. Its last page carried 3 trembling words. "The Mother lives." Attached was a vial of clear water taken from St. Helena's altar. Under light, it shimmered faintly, showing patterns like tiny human eyes. No one could explain it. No one dared to. One cold evening, a young priest named Father Miguel came to see Anna. "The church has questions," he said gently. What did you see that night?" Anna looked toward the horizon. "Not a vision, a remembering." He frowned. "Of what?" "She existed before names, before churches, before men called her holy," Anna said softly. "She is not a saint. She is the first mother, the one who remembers every child ever lost." The priest's voice shook. "That's heresy." Anna turned to him, eyes glowing faintly in the fading light. "No, Father, that's love, before you try to control it." That night, the bells of St. Helena rang again, though they had long been broken. The villagers woke to see light blooming from the ruins. Some ran, others prayed. When the light faded, they found the statue of the Virgin gone. In its place was a pool of clear water. At its center floated a single white lily. Anna was nowhere to be found. But those who looked into the water swore they saw her face, calm, radiant, smiling through the reflection. And when the sun rose, the words appeared faintly carved into the stone. "Oculus mater revertitir," the mother's eye returns. By the next dawn, children across the village began dreaming of a woman in white. She did not speak, she only looked at them, with the kind of love that felt like remembering something ancient, something human. And so, the villagers began to pray again, not to the Father above, but to the Mother within. Because even after the fire, the madness, and the silence, the world still longed for the one who loved first. It began with the mirrors. Across St. Helena, people woke to find their reflections watching them back. At first it was subtle, an extra blink, a delay, a faint shimmer. But by the third night, entire families refused to sleep with lights off. Every reflective surface, windows, glass, even still water, rippled with the faint image of a woman in white. She was not frightening. She was beautiful, unbearably so. But her eyes carried the sadness of eternity. In Rome, the Vatican crisis, it began with the mirrors. Across St. Helena, people woke to find their reflections watching them back. At first it was subtle, an extra blink, a delay, a faint shimmer. But by the third night, entire families refused to sleep with lights off. Every reflective surface, windows, glass, even still water, rippled with the faint image of a woman in white. She was not frightening. She was beautiful, unbearably so. But her eyes carried the sadness of eternity. In Rome, the Vatican Crisis Council met in secret. Reports flooded in from around the world, similar visions, all identical. From cathedrals in France to rivers in Japan, from frozen lakes to desert mirages, the same reflection appeared. A mother's face, serene, ancient, unblinking. The Pope ordered the destruction of every recording. "Do not speak her name," he said, "do not look." But it was too late. The reflection had already entered the screens, phones, televisions, even cameras. Everywhere, people whispered the same words Anna had once spoken. She opened her eyes. In St. Helena, Father Miguel stayed behind. The village was half abandoned now. Those who remained spoke in hushed tones, as though any loud sound might awaken something. He spent his nights inside the ruined church, praying not for salvation, but for understanding. He still remembered Anna's final words, "Love and grief are the same door." That night, the wind stopped again. The air shimmered faintly, and from the pool at the altar, light began to rise, slow, fluid, as though the sea itself was breathing. Father Miguel stepped closer. In the water, he saw not his face, but hers, Anna's, calm, radiant. "You shouldn't have come back," she said, though her lips never moved. He fell to his knees. "What are you?" "What you prayed to, what you feared, what you buried." The light spread across the floor, climbing the walls, filling every crack with warmth that felt both holy and human. Do you understand now? Tears fell from his eyes. You are not God. No, she said softly. I am the reason he needed to be. Outside, the villagers gathered as the church glowed once more. The sea mirrored the light, turning into a vast, living eye that opened across the horizon. In every house, reflections began to move again. But this time, they weren't mimicking. They were remembering. Each person saw something different. A lost child, a dead parent, a forgotten love. Moments of tenderness, pain, forgiveness, all returning in silence. No one screamed. They simply wept. It was as if the entire world had been forced to look at itself, not its face, but its heart. By dawn, the ocean had turned to glass. Every bird, every wave, every human shadow was mirrored perfectly upon it. And then, a voice. Not thunder, not whisper. A chorus made of billions of murmurs, rising from every reflection. We remember. We forgive. We return. The light from the sea reached the clouds, piercing through them like veins of gold. The sun rose twice that morning, once in the sky and once beneath the water. Days later, St. Helena vanished from every map. Ships passed through blank fog where the island should have been. Some said they heard bells. Others saw the faint silhouette of a woman walking upon the waves. Her hands glowed. Her eyes were closed again. And those who looked too long felt something awaken within them, a sorrow so deep it felt like love. In the Vatican archives, sealed under layers of secrecy, Father Gabriel's final journal was found years later. The last page read, "She was not a miracle. She was the memory of the first love, the one before the world was born. And Anna Morel was not chosen. She was remembered." Somewhere, beneath the surface of an endless sea, a woman opens her eyes once more. Her reflection ripples outward, through water, through glass, through every living thing that has ever loved and lost. The light spreads silently, endlessly, patiently. And when it reaches you, you will not see a goddess, nor a ghost, but the part of yourself that remembers. That, before names, before prayers, before sin, you too were born from her. The mother, the first reflection, the memory that never dies.